Department of Education issued a notice that essentially said as long as schools were closed for everyone, the schools had no obligation to do anything for students with disabilities. That was an erroneous statement, and there was a lot of criticism very quickly generated, and within about a week, the U.S. Department of Education withdrew that statement, and the State Department of Education, elementary and secondary education, withdrew their recommendation that had been based upon the federal. And quickly, the state said, look, reach out to families, tell them we're going to provide services, and start providing some services. Maybe not everything. We'll build up over a period of time to communicate to families. And the state has developed a remote services learning plan, a template that they are asking every school district to send out to every child on an IEP that documents exactly what kind of services are going to be provided on a schedule and provides information about contact. So those should have been received. If you have not received anything like that, it's really important that you let people know. The Federation is collecting data about this and is working and passing that on to the information on to the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We hope that by this period of time, there should not be a single district that has not at least had some kind of communication with parents, but if there isn't, we need to know so that we can address that on a systemic basis. There are a lot of other issues that are going to be involved in this, such as, access to equipment and to the internet when classes are presented in some kind of alternative format like that. Again, the Federation is collecting that information. It's important that you use the call center and use that as a resource to help us document it. And we think that we can probably address those issues relatively quickly. The bigger issues, again, in terms of the intensity of services, the question of timelines, how soon should we expect to have team meetings? Can we have virtual meetings? Evaluations in our process. There are a lot more questions in the pipeline that we'll address in another live presentation.
Okay. Any thoughts about what parents should be doing about compensatory services? You mentioned it briefly, but I know that there's a lot of concern from parents and also from from the administrators about liability for compensatory services. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Sure. This obviously is the kind of the ultimate question that we're all concerned about. Once services have gotten started, how do we make up for those services that have been lost through this interruption? And it's still very, very unclear. As I said earlier, we will need to have team meetings to discuss this for every student possible. And to the extent that parents can document what services are being provided and the effect that it's having on their child, they're going to be way ahead in being able to articulate well at these meetings and to obtain appropriate compensatory services. But unfortunately, the law about compensatory services is a very gray area. In general, we don't regard these services as an absolute entitlement, but more of a question about how is the child harmed by the loss of services and what can we do to make up. And we don't know yet, since we're still uncertain as to how long the school closure might go on, whether there might be services available in the summer. So I think it's a little premature at this point to be thinking a lot about compensatory services other than to document exactly what your child is receiving and the impact that the school closure is having on your child. If you definitely see the loss of skills, use the Federation's form to note that down. Keep your own journal. This is a great time for collecting data on your own. Schools are been told today by the state that they need to continue to collect data. They need to continue to issue progress reports. And so you should expect to see progress reports at the end of each term as they come out. I think that for most of us now, we're probably into the fourth term, but the schools are going to have to provide some progress report based upon the goals and objectives in the IEP at the end of this school year. And the data that you provide can be an important element with regard to those progress reports. And again, all of that's going to feed into the question of whether there are any compensatory services that will be provided and how they will be provided.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think we're out of time. Thank you very much, Tim, for sharing your legal expertise. And thank you, everyone, for joining us.
If I could
Uh,
just say one thing else, I would just want to add that, you know,
Sure.
the Federation's call center is a wonderful resource. You should be making use of it. And we have set up an attorney backup for the call center so that there's a number of great attorneys who have volunteered on a pro bono basis to answer questions that come into the call center that may need a legal response. So don't hesitate to be in touch with the Federation, a very important, valuable resource in this difficult time.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank
And
you.
yes, and be safe out there. Have a nice weekend. Take care. Until next time.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye.